So today we're going to talk about literary agents and queries. I do want to preface this with I do not have a literary agent. So this is just my research on the subject and what I know from other traditionally published authors that I've talked to. I have tried to obtain a literary agent. It's almost like trying to bottle lightning. It's anticipating, book trends and what literary agents are looking for and just being in the right place at the right time. Just because your book isn't picked up doesn't mean that it isn't good. It's just not what the traditional publishing houses are looking for at that moment in time, what's popular at the moment. It may come around later that it's popular 5 years down the road. A lot of times popularity comes in waves. If you ever notice, especially at the box office, you notice it more. Oh, there's a wave of vampire movies. That's what's in. Oh, there's a wave of, fantasy Lord of the Rings type stuff. Oh, there's a wave of zombie movies. They all kind of, ebb and flow. So just because zombies aren't in right now doesn't mean that, 7 years down the road, they're going to be the next hottest thing and you have this book that you're sitting on. So it really is about a market which is completely 100% unpredictable. And sometimes literary agents will pick up an author and they will think they will be able to sell that manuscript, and the publishers aren't interested in it. So even the literary agents can get it wrong, and they're the ones who work in that industry, especially if it changes. If you're looking to be traditionally published, typically you have to have a literary agent, and they basically have to submit your manuscripts to publishers who they think will be interested in it. There are a few publishing houses who will accept unagented manuscripts, but not very many. And you'll probably be on a really, really long wait list because probably everybody is submitting to that publisher, and it's probably not all great pieces that are getting submitted. Literary agents basically act as a liaison for you. A lot of people want to know why you need one. Well, I work in regulatory compliance and I read contracts all the time. However, I do not read literary contracts that have to do with, residual royalties if your property is sold for movie rights. I wouldn't even know where to begin. But this is a literary agent's bread and butter, and so they can help walk you through the in and outs of those contracts. I would still, if you're offered a contract, I would still have a lawyer look it over just to be sure that you're being properly represented by your literary agent. But for the most part, they can help negotiate the best deal. When I say best deal in traditional publishing, your royalties per copy sold are not going to be as large as you had hoped. You might get an upfront kind of bonus to kind of sustain you while you're writing, and then you will have your residual royalty checks, which honestly won't be very much. I'm going to be completely honest. Even people who are traditionally published that you would think make tons of money and they're well known, they still have a 9-to-5 job. That's because, typically it doesn't pay the bills. This goes for traditional and independently published authors. The only authors who are able to do the work full time are like your James Patterson, Stephen King, Brandon Sanderson, J.K. Rowling. These are the people who don't need a 9-to-5 job. So you're talking about, massive book sales to be able to make this your full-time gig. So keep that in mind whenever you're doing it. You're not going to be a millionaire right out the gate. This is not going to happen. So your first step in finding a literary agent is to do a search and find somebody who's looking for your specific type. Literary agents will post on websites what they're looking for at that moment in time, and it can change. Like I said, the market fluctuates, and so it can change what they're looking for. You can use manuscriptwishlist.com to kind of search through those literary agents to find, genres and subgenres. They'll have specifications on, certain character types that they want, certain character or story tropes that they're looking for. You want to get as specific as possible. If you can fill that need for that literary agent and they might be interested in it, you definitely probably want to send them a query. You don't want to just send a query out to everybody. Make sure that that agent is interested in the piece of work that you've created. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your time and their time as well. When you're crafting a query, I wish I could say that there's some magical words or, structure that would push you to the top of the pile. There really isn't. All I can say is make it specific. You might even want to mildly stalk that literary agent, see what they're interested in. Do you have common interests? Anything that you can use to step above and beyond the rest of the people, the rest of the queries that are in the pile. Make your query interesting. Don't drone on and on about your book. Make it exciting. Tell them why you think that you would be a good fit for their representation. Do your sales handle. Make sure you include the title, word count, genre, and audience. And make sure you say that, your book meets all of those following qualifications. Do a quick synopsis. Hit on the major points. Some of the major plot points, struggles, events that might be pertinent, that might check a box on that literary agent's list. It should just be a few sentences. You don't need to go overboard and explain everything. And then an about me is kind of a closing statement. Just a few things about you. If you don't have any literary credentials, then it should just be a couple sentences. Generally about you. And then typically along with the query, you will have some sort of writing samples to submit. Sometimes they will ask for a one-page synopsis. If that's the case, you do want to include, I know it's hard when you're writing the blurb on the back of your book. You don't want to give away any of the pertinent story details or the ending. In your synopsis, you actually do want to spoil the ending. You do want to tell the literary agent how it all ends. They need a big picture from beginning to end of your story. Only major events, not every tiny detail. Same thing with sometimes they will request an outline of the work. And so this is all really hard because you've spent a lot of time hashing out all of the tiny details writing this entire rough draft. And then they want you to put it in, I want you to tell me about it in a page. It's really hard to do. And it's really hard as an author, you're pitching your book and you feel like you don't want to give away the ending, but you have to tell them what the ending is. And so I think that's what I struggle with the most. When it comes to your submissions, make sure you read the submission guidelines. They usually tell you you do not use any attachments. You usually copy and paste it within the email because they will not open attachments. Sometimes they will tell you they want it double spaced, they want it a certain font, they only want 5 pages, they want 10 pages, they want 50 pages, they want the first 3 chapters, they want the first chapter, they want, so you need to pay attention to exactly what they want. If they want it in a certain font size, you better make sure that you check every single one of those boxes, because if it comes in to that literary agent's inbox and it doesn't follow any of those requirements, they will not even look at it. They will push it to the slush pile. They have so many queries coming in. If you cannot follow the submission guidelines that they've set, you're out. And it's really annoying because every single agency and every single agent has entirely different guidelines whenever you go to submit. So you can't just create this is my submission package. It doesn't work because they all want different things. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges of querying. They will also say, well, they don't want any simultaneous queries, so you're not supposed to query any other agent, and then they'll say they'll take 6 months to get back to you. So if you know, wait the 6 months, then you find out we're not interested. And sometimes they don't even tell you. They'll just say, well, either you'll hear from us, or if you don't hear from us, then it's a no in 6 months. So sometimes you get nothing. Sometimes they'll tell you, they'll say, you know, it's not right at this time, or sometimes they will give you feedback. So that I would take, you know, and take a hard look. If that was what was missing, I would consider potentially changing it if it could mean getting an agent. So one of the differences between, you know, having an agent and going traditional publishing versus self-publishing is that, you know, typically your agency is going to help you, and a traditional publisher is going to help you with things like advertising. So it will take some of the things off your plate, but then your royalties will be probably significantly less if you go traditional publishing versus self-publishing. So, you know, one hand in the other, you know, it depends on what works for you. So I always try to go traditionally published. Every time I have a new piece of work, I always, you know, let's give it the good old college try. I'll work on that for a while, and then, you know, if I don't get any bites, then I'll say, okay, well then I'm going to take this and publish it myself independently. And a lot of people will say, well then you just screwed your chance of them picking it up later on down the road, which isn't necessarily the case, because the rules of the game have changed significantly in publishing. Traditional publishing is no longer the king as it used to be. You do see books go viral, especially with the help of BookTok. And when that happens, it typically garners the eye of traditional publishers, and a lot of them will pick up books that have been self-published originally. They will pull them down off the platforms and then publish them traditionally. There's been quite a few books that have gone that route, and there are independent books that have gone viral on their own. So it just all depends. Again, like I said, it's like predicting where lightning is going to strike. You just can't do it. So my word of advice is just write the book that you think needs to be written. There's probably an audience for it. Whether it's bestseller size audience or not, will remain to be seen. But if you don't write it, then you'll never know.